All right, welcome to the Sae Bae cast number 259 with Slay Moore. Slay, how are we doing today?
Hey, yes, I'm doing really well. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
You were one of the first players to ever have maxed in old school.
Yeah, rank 35 is the number I remember. I listened to Thurko's episode actually, and he was talking about a lot of stuff I remembered. That was quite a cool episode to
Yes.
listen.
It's weird because I used to think I was a sort of latecomer to the game. I started in 2015, which is just absolutely so long ago. It's been over a decade.
Yeah.
But I used to think I was a latecomer, and now I'm like, wow, I'm actually one of the OGs. But those
Yeah.
first 2 years of old school, the first 2.5 years of old school, I completely missed. And hearing the stories, I'm guessing maybe you've heard the Randalicious episodes as well.
I've had one or two. I think there's quite a few. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a few of them, and whenever I just listen to those stories and of how the game used to be, and even reviewing some of the old poll blogs that were around that time, just seeing the community sentiment and seeing how different the game was in so many aspects is just so fascinating, and it's so cool to see how far we've come in the last like 12 years. So I'm definitely super excited to talk about the sort of old stories and seeing like your perspective on how the game's grown.
Sure. Yeah, and it's funny you say that because you say that it's been 10 years since you played, and so you are going to be one of the more experienced players on this game. But it's crazy to think it's like 13 years now, isn't it? If you started on day one, it's almost 13 years, I believe, if my maths is correct.
12 and a half. I mean, because February 2013.
Yeah, there you go. And you can tell it's been long. My memory is shot. I'm older. I can't remember things that well. So yeah, it's crazy, but it's good to see the direction the game has come. And I tell you what, I guess the main thing that I have to say about that, first off, is I'm just so impressed about how strong, like, this game has gone from strength to strength. There was one time in early old school, and I remember everyone was just sort of playing it thinking it was a bit like a private server. You even got the vibe off the team, the messages, like you said, on those blog posts, and the hilarious sort of things we were debating that you wouldn't even think about today. It wasn't seen as a long-term game. We were all like, oh, maybe 2 or 3 years and then it'll die. That was everyone's assumption. So for it to have gone this far is absolutely incredible.
I think that is something that people miss occasionally. I mean, it happens with so many projects. When you first start something, I mean, old school again had a team of like what, 5 people on release of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, like their intention was not to completely dominate RS3 and become like the top game. I don't think in anybody's wildest dreams they would have seen the player count surge to over like I believe it passed 250,000 players just barely over the past like 30 days, which is just insane. And I don't think anybody could have foreseen that. And I do kind of, I don't know, like I appreciate what it's become, and I appreciate how careful they've been like the whole time. Like there's obviously been updates and controversies over the years, but for the most part, they've been super, super balanced and like super, I guess, really connected to their original goal, which was to make it a sort of player run game. Obviously people will have their opinions on like how that has sort of transpired over the years with the 70% passing threshold now and stuff like that, and it seems like there's just a lot of gray line with quality of life and whatever else, integrity change. But for the most part, they still treat this game as a community run game where the players have all the control, which I just think is the reason it's for its success.
Absolutely. And you're 100% right. I 100% agree. And I wanted to bring that into the podcast today because, you do see a lot of toxicity in the way that, and I don't want to just focus on that. There's lots of positives that obviously we can talk about, but there can be a lot of toxicity towards Jagex and the way they run things and updates. And I get that. You have every right to have an opinion. You're paying quite a lot of money for membership. Maybe if you buy bonds, you're paying more money. But this game is incredible. The team is incredible because they've grown. I think RuneScape at the time that they made old school, they basically had to plead and beg. And if some of you might remember listening to this, they needed a minimum amount of votes from people. I can't remember if it was 750k. I have no idea, but they needed a minimum sort of amount of vouchers for them to sort of go ahead with old school. and people really banded together, and they got even more votes, I think, than they were expecting, and it just blossomed into what it is today. And it, like you said earlier, I think it was 5 people. I remember there was Mod John C, Mod Reach. I can't remember some of the other ones, and that community input is very rare. The amount that they take on from us, the amount they listen to it, and the amount they adapt the game based on that. I have played video games my whole life, and I have to say this is the number one game I've played of community engagement. It doesn't even come close to any other game I've played.
I'm totally with you. Now, before we jump into some of these topics, I do want to get a little bit more background, which is you have a very, very progressed account, which I'll have you kind of touch on in a second. But what's cool is that you are 200 mil slayer. You're a pet hunter with 58 pets, which you can kind of share what the last pets you're kind of going for.
59 now, actually, yeah.
Oh, 59. Okay, nice. And your RSN is just Slay More, so just like the title. So if anybody wants to look you up, just look at his Beast account. But yeah, if you want to share a little bit more about your sort of play style and just how your account has come to the point it's come, and like, have you taken any breaks? That's another question I want to ask, like during this time.
Sure. So I've been playing, like I said, since release, basically day one. I took one notable break. Quite a significant one, and I think it was almost 600 days long. I remember the sign-in screen, the login screen, being 500 something days.
Ooh.
And that was when I wasn't feeling so good in real life, and I just needed a break, focus on other stuff, play other games, and I needed that break because this is obviously a grindy game, and I just kind of needed a reset. And since that reset, I think that was about 5 years ago, this is the only game I've wanted to play again. So I kind of had that in the middle. Sort of 5 years break, 5 years. And yeah, I've been focusing early game. I just wanted to get max as soon as possible. Hence sort of 35th person to max. I wanted to get that just as an achievement. You didn't even have max kit back then. So that was quite a fun grind. And then after that, I think I remember sort of early Tob after that kind of gave me a lot of focus. Just in terms of making money, because I wanted to progress that towards maybe getting pets, and then I got addicted to Tob. So I've got the 2K cape for Tob. I think it's a great piece of content. And then after that, I really went hard on pets, and I kind of in my downtime when I'm not grinding pets, because unfortunately now I've run out of AFK pets. I can't even do those. I like to do a bit of wood cutting. Only problem with that is I'm 3 mil away from being maxed on that, so I'm a bit sad about that.
Just saw that. Yep.
Yeah, it's a bit sad. But that's kind of the overview of my account. And yeah, I'm 59 pets now. I recently got, what was the one I got recently? I recently got Scorpio. Finished the Wilderness Pets, which I hate. I really don't like the Wilderness personally.
Yeah.
So I've got 6 left. The thing that sucks about the remaining pets is they are very long average hour ones. So if I get my pet log up here, I will go through them.
Let's hear it.
So we've got the every pet chases nightmare, pet dark core from the Corporeal Beast. I still need that. Bandos, that's my last sort of God Wars pet, which I'm 6.5k KC, and if anyone else has hunted those and gone dry, that is a brutal grind. And then Ulm, I think that's like average 400 something hours, so that's bad. I need to get going on that. And Bloodhound, I've got 300 something master caskets saved up for that, so fingers crossed.
And you're already at 1200 masters completed.
Yes, so my plan, and then the last 2 pets are Chin Pet and Titan Pet, so that's not too bad.
Okay.
My plan is to, what I'm currently doing, saving up all my elites for a final clue opening. So I'm going to make a YouTube video. I'm going to be at 64 out of 65 pets. My estimate will be I might have around 500 masters by that point. And just do an opening on Twitch, make a video about it, hype it up a little bit, and see if I can kind of get that final pet in the opening. I guess that's currently where my account's at right now. Yeah.
Damn. What were your worst? I mean, I'm looking at your boss KCs right now. 10,000 Commander Ziliana. I'm guessing just around 10,000 when you got the pet, or did you just continue beyond it?
So I got it at I was getting super depressed because I was like, oh my god, if I go dry past 10k, and then I got it at 9,984 or something. So I just thought, just for my OCD, it has to be a round number, So but I've got friends. When you're in the pet hunting community, you learn about these just insane dry streaks that people go on, and this is something I'd like to touch on maybe a bit later in the podcast about dry protection or mitigation of dry streaks. So I'm not maybe thinking about protection, but mitigating it. How can we get a bit of better RNG? And so if you look at my KCs, let me just get them up here. I'm currently going, for example, for the chin pet, and I'm 69 mil Hunter XP. So I've gone 2 times dry already just on the red chins that I'm doing. So, and my friend Kyle, so in game you spelt KYLL, he did 17k bandos for his pet. And that's I don't want to know how many hours that is. But I'd say overall, my pet luck isn't great. I haven't been spooned on many. Worst grind, if I had to pick what the worst grind was, I would probably say the 10k Sara, because I wasn't ulting, I wasn't using any special strats, and just the pure raw hours I put into that was pretty insane, I would say.
Yeah. We just talked last cast, me and Tasty, of just the changing up how God Wars timers work, because I feel like so much of that, just without alting and without doing any world hopping shenanigans or anything like that, just the amount of time you're waiting for the boss to respawn is just so much time. And we were kind of talking about definitely... Yeah, I mean, we just mentioned, because I was thinking it would be cool to kind of customize the respawn time, and then Tasty brought up a great idea of what if there was just a quick start option on the altar where you can kind of stand wherever in the room and just right click the altar and say start, and then in the next 5 ticks it'll spawn.
That's a super good idea. I mean, that's the sort of quality of life stuff that I'd really like to see start coming into the game more. Of just that, because when you're grinding this game for so long, those 30 seconds, those 1 minute, they really add up. It's just sort of dead time, and not all players want to make 5 alt accounts. Maybe you're an Iron Man as well and you're not able to. So I think that would be a great idea. I've actually sort of recently, I've bit the bullet, and I've made alts. I've made 2 alts now just to speed up my bandos kills, because it was just like Tasty says, without that any quality of life there, it's just such a long time, the downtime. So I think if you're a main and you have the time, now with things like Gemstone Crab, which is a great update, it's very easy to make a decent ult quite quickly. So I've kind of just gone ahead and done that, and it's really helped.
That's cool. Yeah. How much of your bossing did you use alts for? And are you an alter, generally speaking?
Yeah, so I'm I used to be very anti-alt. I don't like using alts, and I've gotten all of my pets apart from Scorpio without alts. So yeah, literally 58 pets without alts, and I'll be honest with you, I kind of, now I've made them, I can see why people it was worth making them. As a main, as a max main pet hunter, you should have alts. That's seriously what I've learned. But it's a very sort of purist way to get pets without alts, and so an Iron Man who has all pets, I think that's a really impressive feat, and I know there is a few, because you're not getting that extra kills per hour. But I now have the alts for bandos. I want to help with that. Corp, I am going to be boosting that, because I'm not willing to make 14 alts with Masori and spec transfer and all sorts of stuff. So I'm going to be boosting that. It's incredibly expensive though, unfortunately.
Let me ask about your sort of sentiment regarding alts, because for a lot of newer players, I don't think they remember that actually used to be a bannable offense. You couldn't use alts at the beginning of old school. That was against the rules. which is crazy because I feel like a lot of those older players still kind of hold on. I don't think it's quite as prevalent these days, but I do remember when they kind of released that. For the people that didn't really quickly evolve into alting, they almost had this resentment for people that did alt, and it wasn't like respectable. So what do you feel like that sentiment maybe lingered on you, or is it simply you just enjoy playing one account?
No, you know what? That's a super good point. I do think that I kind of had that attitude, like that real old school attitude of this game shouldn't be altered. Because, like you say, and I totally forgot about this, but they were very, very strict on alting back in the day. You could get banned, and it was seen as like having an unfair advantage in the game. So like after sort of the first 2-3 years with that being in place, I just got used to the one account, and I think I enjoyed. It was so sort of relaxing. You just have the one account. You do some downtime. I'm not a very efficient player. The only reason my stats are the way they are is because I just play a lot in the background. I don't do things that efficiently. So yeah, I got very used to sort of a LoneScape. In a way, I wish I kind of was an Iron Man because it suits that playstyle better. But Iron Man came out so much later. So yeah, I think you're right. I think I did kind of have this like slight bitterness towards people who would just spam God Wars with 5 ults, 6 ults, do everything efficiently. It kind of annoyed me. But then as a max main, you've spent thousands of hours on the game. You're coming up to some of the biggest grinds. And the last year or so, I've started thinking, if you can't beat them, join them, because why are you putting yourself through this when there is an easier option? So that's kind of the journey I've gone through, I think, recently.
Yeah, and it does feel like the culture of the game, even with more elite players, is to everyone just seems much more relaxed on how other people play. That used to be a big I don't know, it just seemed like it was much more prevalent to just really care about how other people are playing. I think a lot of it had to do with ranks. Now the fact that like ranks are just so saturated and taken already, especially like skilling ranks, there's no way you can get top page. It feels like it feels like most people are just playing for themselves now and their own accomplishments rather than having that sort of competition. And I feel like that does sort of like calm people down to like how other people are playing, and almost just allows themselves to just experience what they would want to do without feeling like they're tainting their account by using alts or whatever.
Yeah, that's true. And I like what you said about the ranks, because early game that was a lot of the players put so much time in. I mean, obviously they still do, but that was a big motivator back then, because you could get good ranks and it felt really good. And that's why I wanted to max quickly, because I was like, oh my god, maybe I could get top page. Obviously I didn't, but I got second page and I was happy with that. And it is a big motivator, but I have a lot more fun on this game personally. Others might enjoy it when I'm not playing for ranks, when I'm just playing for my own goals, my own accomplishments, which aren't normally rank based.
Yeah.
And I do think that for me, that works a lot better. And having that long sort of 500-day break, it was so much time at a critical point in the game that all the ranks, even if I wanted to chase them, they weren't that impressive anymore anyway when I came back, because all of those top pages had been filled by that point.
Yeah. I want to actually touch on what you mentioned earlier, dry protection. That's been a pretty debated topic, I feel like, over the last couple of years, with people trying to figure out how to make the game a little bit more reasonable, and with that, but also not destroying the old school nature of the brutal going dry on things. Because I think there are a lot of players that do like that system of like you can just go incredibly dry.
Yes. I think it's something that needs a lot of careful consideration, because it's an area where the reason I think you have to be so careful is you don't want to start straying into the territory of things becoming too easy. And obviously that is the debate. That's the whole debate. Every poll, we don't, players, they want quality of life, but other players don't want things to become too easy. So how can we find that middle ground? So my opinion on that with dry protection is, I don't think we should have a set number or a set amount of dryness that gives you an item, for example, a pet. I don't think that's a good idea, because potentially there's where it could be abused. For example, if you've got every purple except the mega rare, if then the next mega rare you get, I just feel like I just don't feel good about that. So instead, maybe something like improving the grandmaster achievement. Sorry, not the grandmaster, the combat achievements, and giving us an item, for example, the lucky penny, in a second slot, which I've seen suggested on Reddit. I think that's a very good idea. An extra slot, and maybe making the lucky penny some sort of boost to RNG. And when I say boost, I mean like minimal but noticeable. So, for example, maybe let's say if you get the master achievements, so you know how like with the clues, for example, you know how you kind of have a better chance of getting a clue with each tier.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking maybe the lucky penny, you could, with each tier you go up, there could be some specific boost to your luck with drop rates of very rare items. So I'm talking, 2%, 3%, 5%, maybe 10% with the Grandmaster for cosmetic items like pets. And personally, I think that would be much better than having like, I think RuneScape 3, is it the drop rate of the pet? You then get the pet. Is that correct?
I don't actually really remember. I think it's something like when you do pass the rate, then it just gets easier and easier and easier to the point of like, I don't think it's even like virtually possible to go like 3 times the rate in RS3 on pets and stuff. I could be mistaken on that. I think people have told me that as soon as you pass the rate, it basically like doubles the rate afterward, and then after a little bit longer, like triples it. And
Sure. And I wonder if with the mega rares you could apply it to that as well. So maybe if you've had all purples and you use, apart from the mega rare, and you use the lucky penny, maybe you get a one-time significant boost to that being your next drop. I just think we need to think outside the box a bit. Those might not be great ideas, but I think it does need to be looked at, just because I think, I've had friends, Iron Man friends, who've actually de-ironed their accounts. I think a lot of max players know people who've done this with 10,000 hours, and he's de-ironed because he was so tired of going dry at chambers. 3 years, 4 years of grinding. This guy had hundreds of purples, and because he just psychologically, you just get to a point where it's just like, I can't take it anymore. I'm 4,000 hours dry raiding, and I'm no closer to getting this twisted bow than I was before. And I think the game needs to reward your time investment somehow. And I think that that's not fair on players. And no criticism on Jagex, but I do think that if I was in the team, that would be something I'd really want to like sort of urgently explore. Because personally, I've seen a lot of players get turned off the game. Max higher account players get turned off the game because of just the brutality of this game's RNG fest.
Yeah,
is a bit much.
That's an interesting idea of a sort of luck boosting sort of token that you can equip or whatever, and maybe you can choose where you're going to use up that RNG that maybe it like recharges over however many bosses you kill or something. I do sort of like that. I don't know how it would function mechanically. Like for example, like if you are just missing one item, what is it exactly boosting if there's a boss that has multiple drops? And how
I'm gonna
are
be
you?
Honest.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest. I haven't thought this through very well. but I
wanted
wanted
just
to
saying,
bring
generally speaking, is something that can boost RNG of things that maybe
Yes.
you're dry on, is what you're considering. And then
Exactly, and
they can work that out, obviously, like in detail later. But you're just throwing out ideas.
yeah, exactly. Like leave it to Modash. He'll come up with something hopefully. But I just think that a second slot. I've seen this idea on Reddit, so I'm copying this from Reddit. A second slot that you can put the penny in. That's a great idea. And then I think across the board, a lot of people agree that combat achievement rewards are slightly underwhelming. Why don't we make the lucky penny actually lucky? That's my concept. And like what you said, you can play around with it, you can tweak it. But I think it's actually quite important for the integrity of a game that some people might say, no, I don't like that. It's reality. You should grind. There's drop rates, and you get it when you get it. And if you can't take it, you can't take it. But I think it's nice for people who maybe don't have as much time or don't want to sink 4,000 hours into raids to get one item, to just have that little bit more RNG, 15% plus 15% chance of that T-bow one time or whatever it is. I just think that needs to be implemented somehow.
Yeah, I think because I've heard many ideas, I've had many guests on where we have talked about dry protection, and I think what I have now sort of, I guess, decided personally of what I would like to see, and I've had this sort of sentiment, and it's only gotten a little bit more, I guess, fleshed out, is just never make any actual item that is a part of your arsenal. And what I mean is like an actual weapon upgrade. So I'm not talking about cosmetics or jars or third age or anything. I'm talking about things that are like upgrades to your equipment to kill other bosses. And obviously there's probably like some gray lines of what that exactly means. But generally speaking, any boss like weapons or gear or raids items should all be in a certain hour range efficiently of obtaining. And I think one of the mistakes that Jagex made, and this is just my opinion, is making chambers rates incredibly absurd. And there's a few reasons for it, probably, which is one, it was the biggest piece of content and the only huge raid in the game at the time. And putting all those hours into the development of the raid, they wanted it to be camped. Like they wanted people to invest hundreds of hours into this place. And if Raids 1 had come out after a plethora of other raids had come out prior to it and a lot of other bosses, I don't think they would have felt the need to make the drop rates so absurd. And I think when we look at it, we have so many different paths in this game now to take to get different gear upgrades, especially if you play an Iron Man, you can just see how many different routes you can take to build up your gear set. And I think Chambers really just needs to, I've said this before, it sounds radical, but like really I would just love to see Chambers drop rates be doubled across the board and just have some rebalancing with scaling. I think just generally speaking, doubling the drop rates and if that means maybe reworking how the prayer scrolls are given, maybe making it so like CMs don't even give prayer scroll drops. So CMs are really where you're kind of getting the more big ticket items. You just have a much better chance. But just across the board, doubling those rates, making it so a Tebow being, I want to say, generally speaking, if you're an average player that's jumping into raids, if you're going for a Tebow, that shit's going to take 600 hours on raid because you're not doing it efficiently. You're going to die occasionally. You're going to be spending time scouting. There's a lot of hours that are just kind of sunk without like calculating it efficiently. But even let's say a Tebow is 300 hours efficiently, and I know you can make it even more efficient if you're doing mega scales or 3+12s or whatever the hell people are doing these days. And by the way, I would love that to be sort of reworked as well, making it so any sort of scaling does give you a pretty decent chance. I don't like the super warped scaling where it almost feels like you need to do a certain scaling because it's so much better for purples.
Sure.
But generally speaking, if you were to just rip the Band-Aid off and make it so drop rates are genuinely within the range of, and I will throw out hours. Like I really do think no item in this game that is a weapon or a gear upgrade should ever be over. I used to say 250 hours, then I dropped to 200 hours, and now I am saying 150 hours. Anything, and I'm talking about efficiently. So you could be a noob and it could still take you about 300, 400 hours, but efficiently, I don't think any singular item in this game that's not purely cosmetic should be over 150 hour grind. I think that's the absolute cap we should ever like hit.
I think that's very reasonable. I especially, I think it's very important the context you added with when the content was added, because it, like you said, it was the first raid. They were expecting it to be just piled on, maybe the only raid. They might not have even had plans for raids 2 at that point. So yeah, I think the drop rates are aged. They're aging badly, and you can see that with the Iron Man accounts that are going 4,000 hours dry for a Tebow. So yeah, I think you're right in that potentially just making things more common and just accepting the hit to the price of the items is probably better for people's experience of the game. I do think overall, and even if things are more common, you're going to have more engagement with players because they're going to have the gear that they can use to get to the good bosses faster, and there'll be less risk of them burning out in the mid to late game, which happens quite a lot, especially with Iron Men, because they need the item drop. So I really like your idea, and I like the idea of scaling down the hours, because it's like we shouldn't have an item that you can go, you know, even 1,000 hours is ridiculous. That's a huge amount of your own time.
Yeah.
150 hours, even 250 hours, I could kind of go with, because 150 is fair. But I like your idea of making it more common, and I think the only downside would be obviously that items would crash, like big ticket items. People might not be very happy about that, but I think overall it would be better for the game to adjust those rates. And I guess
they do have some systems in place. One of them is just item syncing, like Grand Exchange item syncing. Like they really can manipulate the market in a way where certain items are sunk more. They already do it with mega rares and other raids items and other big ticket items. I also think that sort of rebalancing how raids works could also address some of those issues. So for example, like prayer scrolls not even really being given to CMs, maybe rebalancing how points are given. So solos and other just basic small teams are giving you actually a decent amount of points, because it really feels like just running basic trios without scaling it is just a total waste of time at Chambers. And I'd love to see them sort of just switch that up a little bit, make it a little bit more fair across the board. There's a lot of discussion to be had and a lot of like balancing with that. But one of the things you would see is just basic supply and demand. I mean, if all of a sudden the rates were doubled and people started grinding it, the GP per hour would just, drop. And then at that point, people would jump to another raid, and they would jump to Toa, which, by the way, if you look at Toa, if you look at Tob, they're way more reasonable already. Like on release, they were much more reasonable to get a drop. Like Scythe, these are kind of older numbers, but what used to be the sort of general range was a Tebow was about 400 hours and a Scythe was about 230 hours, even on release. Like that was kind of the general sort of how long this takes. And again, like those hours are way different depending on gear these days and the metas and whatever else. But it was already almost twice as common to get a Scythe. It was just seen as the harder raid sort of. And then you got Toa, and like people, if you're good at Toa, I mean, getting a Shadow, especially before the drop rate nerf, that was even more common than a Scythe. Like you could just kind of go get a Shadow. And I feel like those raids are more in line with the hours that are appropriate. And I feel like Chambers, we just need to rip that band. This is my opinion. They need to rip that Band-Aid off. It's the same thing. We're going to talk about Nightmare in a second, but like the same thing with Nightmare, where they've repeatedly been ripping off these little Band-Aids to make it actually a reasonable piece of content, and it's still not at that place, in my opinion. And Chambers, it's like, dude, what are we going to do when Raids 4, Raids 5, Raids 6 comes out? Like, are we going to, until the end of time, just keep digging our heels into, no, the drop rates of Chambers are fine the way they are and never change them? It's out of control, I think.
Yeah, I do think definitely they've done a lot for Cox, but the one thing they need to change now is the drop rates, and the scaling is great. I do agree with that. And I just quickly, before we move on to next, on this point of sort of old updates kind of causing issues, the drop rates, I think a good example for me as a pet hunter is the drop rates of God Wars dungeon bosses. Because, in my opinion, 1 in 5k is just insane for those pets. And I get it. Like, I've locked myself to this way of playing. I get it. I shouldn't be moaning, but I am. Because 1 in 5k is if you think about going dry, which is quite a fairly good chance of going dry on that. I think in this example, God Wars was a very early update, and they weren't expecting. I think one of the mods even said, I can't remember which one, that we weren't expecting people to collect all the pets. We didn't think you'd be crazy enough to go out and grind 20k bandos to go dry for a pet. So when they were releasing these things, they weren't having balance in mind. These were one of the only bosses dropping pets at the time. So they were like, okay, 5k, we'll make it a super cool item. And at the time it worked. But now, not so much. And I think it's just similar to Chambers. These older updates, they do have some issues with drop rates, I think.
Interesting. So I've never been necessarily a pet hunter. I think I have like 32 or 33 pets on Sae Bae, but I really just kind of played the game a lot, and I just ended up collecting pets anyway. But so maybe I'm not totally qualified or totally like in the pet hunter community to really understand how other people feel about it. But at least personally, I have never felt like pet rates need to have any real changes to them. I do understand the standardization. I feel like there is something to be said about pets these days being more about 1 and 3K, and maybe they could just look at just changing those old pets. Like I could see an argument that I could potentially agree with of just kind of standardizing pets across the board, like DK's pets being 1 and 3K, God Wars being 1 and 3K. But my general sentiment is that anything cosmetic, being pets or third age or any like jars or anything like that, never needs to really be addressed because it's not like an essential upgrade. It's purely cosmetic, and it's purely like if you decide to be the masochistic player that wants to do some crazy grind that you could potentially go super dry on.
Yeah, and that's fair, and I think that's why I just think it would be neat if for example, I actually think I agree with you that pet rates are fine. The only ones I would change are God Wars to 1 in 3K. That's my personal opinion. I think 1 in 3K would be a lot more reasonable.
What about DKs? Do you feel the same there too?
I think DKs is okay because you
Okay.
can kill them so quickly, and I think that's okay. I mean, yeah, maybe, but the thing is, I like the idea of this penny because then maybe you can imbue it for one boss just for for your whole account history and get a bit more luck on one of those cosmetics. But like you say, it's if you look at the pet hunters community, it's not that big. I mean, there's a few hundred people actively grinding for all pets, and we've got much more important things to address. It would just be nice to kind of have a slight buff in a place where you really needed it, I suppose. But that's just my perspective. Yeah.
No, and I actually don't hate that idea. I really think that I don't know. Again, it's more the general concept. I don't know how mechanically they would implement something like this, but I do like that sort of system of being able to sort of pick and choose the places that you really do want that extra boosted RNG. And I do think maybe players would maybe enjoy that of, I know it sounds more RS3, quote unquote, of just kind of really changing the game. But if it's just pretty minimal, like something up to 10%, it's not super game breaking. And depending on how they implement a system like that, I think it could just be a little bit more of like a placebo, not even necessarily. I mean, because it wouldn't be a placebo, but even just feeling good about I am using my luck here at this place that I really want to get something could feel good. And it could just push you a little bit more to continue the grind.
Yeah, potentially, but like you said, there is a lot more important things that need to be addressed first. Probably, it's just a nice little idea from someone who's been hunting pets for as long as they have.
Well, I have talked about this before, but in our DM, you mentioned Phosanis for necks, which was kind of a meme initially, but I do understand that Phosani's Nightmare really did help out original Nightmare, giving a sort of like solo variant. And there are many players that do like the idea of being able to grind things without having to find teams and dealing with all that. So there's going to be much more I want to talk about just regards to Phosanis and necks in general and their drop rates especially. But I want to hear your idea for this sort of Phosanis necks and where that's coming from.
Yeah, I mean, to start off, I think that the Phosani update was really good. Because I know you grinded and a few other Iron Men grinded green logs at the original Phosanis, at the original Nightmare, and insane amount of hours needed for that. And I just think next seems like the next obvious choice. It's a very long boss fight. It just seems like a no-brainer to me, especially for Iron Men. Why don't we make it a more dangerous instance? A lot more damage if you make a mistake. You have to be a skilled player to do it, but you get the reward of having a faster green log. I think that it just, the main thing you need to be careful about is, again, drop rates. You don't want them to be too overpowered. As far as I'm aware, Phosani's, when it came out, really affected the prices of all the drops. But again, I just think that I think it's a fair price to pay to make it a better boss to grind. In terms of like mechanics, I haven't thought too much about what the mechanics should be, but I do feel like they should be similar to if you're going to be rewarded so much, I do think it should be a hard piece of content like Phosani's. I think dodging things. I think if you make mistakes, it needs to be punished harder. Again, it's kind of like the Tebow thing. You see a lot of Iron Men, especially, get really, really screwed over here. The only thing that I suppose, find a bit sad about this update would be that I know there is a lot of mains who do go there for their main money making. So I don't know really if even have you thought about this at all, or how we might be able to mitigate, if they were to do this update, how they might be able to mitigate that, the money making side of things being poor.
Yeah, I'm not fully convinced we do need a Phosani's next, personally. I understand why people want it. I think there's other way. I feel like I don't know, the more I think over the last few years, I have leaned more into it's okay for there to be forced group content in a way. And yeah. I do think there are issues with Nex, namely the drop rates. I think they're quite absurd. I don't think they need to be quite as rare. So that's already one thing. The other issue is just, I mean, this goes with all God Wars. I think they should have a better system for ecumenical keys. I was just talking with Tasty and the cast before, talking about how ecumenical keys I don't think should have a cap. Personally, I think you should be able to grind out as many as you want and have them be stackable even. And I think ecumenical key shards, first of all, maybe if they're going to have an update that does have just ecumenical keys being stacked, I think ecumenical key shards could probably be a thing of the past personally. And maybe you just occasionally get a drop of an ecumenical key that, again, is a now stackable item that can be in your inventory. So you're getting rid of that sort of annoyance and that sort of, I don't know, just... what's the word I'm thinking of? Just the, I guess I'll just use annoyance again. The annoyance of getting to a boss. It just feels like a hurdle to just start killing the boss because of this kind of KC, this like ancient system of grinding KC just to be able to have access to the door, which again, you could still keep, but I do think a system where you can really just spend a full day grinding out all the keys and then not having to worry about it for a week or two or a month or however many you gather, I think could be a good system. And in regards to Phosani's, if the community did want it, to answer your question, I do think that no matter what, because in their blog post for Phosani's Nightmare, they did say this is going to be a much harder fight. It's going to be balanced because of its difficulty. It's going to be a faster fight. But ultimately what happened is it just became the thing to do. And like doing normal Nightmare is just, I'm sorry, it's just so pathetic. It's just so horrible.
Now, isn't it?
Yeah, the drop rates are awful, and the fight itself is just so boring and so ass. Like they didn't even try to clean up that original fight where they really could have. Like there's elements of normal Nightmare that are more difficult than Phosani's because they just didn't clean it up. So I guess to fully answer, I don't really know what they would do in terms of the economy, because I do think Phosani's Nex would drastically crash the prices of Nex items. And which is maybe partly the reason why I think it would be okay to keep that as a team-based thing. But I think they need to get rid of those annoying hurdles that make it so Nex is it just feels like a pain point of progression with gear. I don't know. It's just, I actually don't mind the fight though. That's the thing. Like I don't actually mind Nex. They've already cleaned it up a little bit. There's other elements, but man, there's just still some annoyances with it.
I think they have tried to address this, haven't they? Wasn't there an update recently where they made it quicker, the fight? I haven't actually been back since they've done these updates, but it looks a bit better than it was.
Yeah.
I do think that you're seeing a problem here in that, since Iron Man was introduced, because I don't think any of this would have been debated before that, really. Because people would have just, if there was no Iron Man, they would have just masked this stuff. They wouldn't have ever questioned it, really, unless drop rates were crazy bad. But because of Iron Man mode, this is where the problem comes in. And I it's not realistic to make a Phosani's of every big boss, because it's just going to, like you said, it's just going to make the old boss bad to kill and pointless to kill, which is making dead content. But I do think you need to maybe do it for 2 or 3 bosses where you have these really important pieces of gear, and maybe, for example, if they weren't gonna do next something like Corp, because I feel like, what is it, 9 kills an hour or something for an Iron Man at Corp, making the fight is so bad. The fight is so bad. It's just sitting there, specking it, tellying, going back over and over again, and then poking it for like 10 minutes. And I do think, maybe Corp, they should consider, I don't know about a Phosani's Corp, but just consider making it a more engaging boss fight, and giving you something to interact with more than just sort of 2 squares east for a dark core, 2 squares west for a dark core every second. So that's another boss I think that needs work as well, is Corp. Because again, it's just that syndrome of thousands of hours grind for Iron Man as well.
Yeah. Corp's one of those where it would make a little bit more sense because it already is something that people are grinding solo, so it's not like really destroying any metas necessarily. Corp has had so many evolutions with the Iron Man meta. I mean, it used to just be like the 3 Warhammer, 7 Arclight, 200 BGS damage, and now if you have like some other gear, I mean, a lot of people are just going in with like 2 Elder Mauls and then they just kill it with a Fang or whatever else they're using, a Halberd, or I don't even know what people are using these days because I just really haven't kept up with the meta, but it's gotten much, much, much more like streamlined. And I think there is that natural gatekeepiness, which I actually kind of enjoy. I enjoy the fact that Corp hasn't been completely revolutionized where you can kind of jump into Corp at an earlier level, because I feel like that's something that can be overlooked, is when you do change boss fights, it changes like what the threshold is of being able to kill it. So for example, like Corp was always locked behind a BGS, but if they were to change Corp, what if BGS is no longer even a thing? You can just jump into it because they've just streamlined it so much. You can just jump in sort of at any account level and just kind of grind out like the 175 Onyx bolts and kind of change some Iron Man metas potentially. And people have even suggested the like opposite of Phosani's, where they want a Corp to be a massable thing for Iron Men, which again comes into the same issues of like Iron Men being able to mass it, and then you can just go in there with a level 20 Iron Man that has an adamant crossbow and ruby bolts and just get a few kills and spoon some shit, which could have some negative effects on how Corp has always been perceived. So I think you have to be very careful with Corp. I'm not against it necessarily, but I think there's just so many things to consider before making drastic changes to a boss fight. And last thing I'll say on this sort of point is I am a little bit just personally am resistant to changing up boss fights just because of their old school nature. So people bring up KQ, for example. Now, I didn't kill the Echo bosses in Leagues, but I heard really great things about those sort of Echo bosses that could be a lot of fun. But I do think there's something charming and something to be said about classic old school boss fights that's just like a tank fest. I do think there's issues with KQ. One is that it spawns all the way fucking across the edge of the room, which is just so stupid. The same thing with Corp. Corp tends to magnet toward the very opposite end of the cave, which is just like holy fuck, like shrink this cave, like make it so you're not having to run for 10 seconds just to hit it once. And KQ could deal with some of that, and KQ could also not completely ignore all of your defense, which I think is absurd. But yeah, there's a lot more to say on that. I'm just kind of going off, but do you have thoughts?
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think overall, it's not something I feel too passionately about. I think a lot of these points I wanted to bring up just because I think it's important, very important for the game to keep the Iron Man mode healthy, and for people to want to keep grinding Iron Man mode, because that is so many players now in the game. And I think that's where this is coming from. I've got a maxed Iron Man as well on the side. I've just kind of AFK'd it for long enough that it's maxed now. And I guess maybe I've got some vested interests because I've got all the supplies. I'm ready to go, and I just want everything to be a bit easier. But I also do have friends who've de-ironed. And I think the main issue, if I had to pick one, is Cox. And I do think that, like, you're right, it needs to be rebalanced. Something needs to change there. So that's like the number one thing I'd focus on. This idea of like having these old sort of slightly clanky bosses that you don't if you don't really need the gear, I suppose it doesn't really matter. And it is thinking, old school in after 20 years, do we really want every boss to be like super hard? Probably not. So yeah, I see your point. I think it's fair to have, there is a bit of that sort of lovely nostalgia, isn't there? And having these sort of ridiculous bosses that act in these funny ways, as long as they're not locking really important gear, which most of the time they're not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's I don't know. I enjoy the sort of old school bosses because it allows you to make it more complex. It allows the player to add complexity to a very simple fight. For example, KQ, you can do those step unders if you're using a 5-tick weapon, doing step unders and ring switches. And there's not just a bunch of weird other shit going on that kind of removes that ability to have complexity added for your own sake. I think like if you started summoning like a bunch of weird, I don't know, crystals that you now need to kill and like shock waves underneath you and just making it very like, I don't know, more modernized. I think that it just can get a little bit tiresome and just like, all right, well, time to deal with all these forced mechanics rather than me being able to choose whether I want to like, I don't know, take this a step further. I feel like,
and potentially
yeah.
if you overdo it, early game to mid game players might be like, what the hell is this? And they might not want to continue.
And
so
and KQ's got its own issues. I mean, the shortcut, that not passing a poll was the most disturbing thing I've ever seen. I mean, really, if you have
that was bizarre.
if you have 86 agility, you should not be locked behind an elite diary to pass that shortcut.
I remember that one. That was one of the weirder ones. Yeah, for sure.
It's so bad. I mean, on this account, I was very early level, and I had to grind 256 KQ to get the tattered head, and just to start killing KQ normally. And it's like I'm running around this fucking maze, and I'd have to take like a stam sip before the run energy. I mean, with the run energy changes, I barely made it with one energy left from the fairy ring all the way in there just to be able to make it there. But it's just like, dude, this is so unnecessary. And I had 92 agility and I couldn't even utilize it because I just couldn't get the diary done. And the way to get the diary done is to get the fucking KQ head. It's so cursed.
I don't think people. I actually interesting with KQ because it was one of my, just quickly hopping back to the old days of old school.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of the first pets I grinded out, and KQ kills back then. My God, I can't. I think it was 20 KC. No, less than that. I can't remember. It was very few KC per hour because I was running there like you, and I didn't have the diary for half the kills, and I hated it. That was such a bad grind. I think it was part of the reason I quit at the time because KQ. But nowadays with alts, I've seen the meta. It's so good. It's so much better than it used to be, and that's just one example of how the game's progressed as well.
Yeah, and that's one thing I failed to mention because I do play Iron Man is like if you start modernizing these fights, what are you going to do with alts? Because I feel like when they modernize fights, alts become not as relevant or maybe even impossible to really use because maybe it's like an instance now or something. And I just feel like there's negative consequences to just modernizing all bosses.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think if they focused on, my opinion would be if they maybe looked at Corp a bit more kills per hour for Iron Man, and also just sort of somehow made Cox a little bit more easy to greenlock, that would be really good for the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just my 2 cents on things. Yeah.
I think we agree a lot with things, and I with Nightmare, I think drop rates still could be doubled, and that would be completely reasonable. I know they're just being so careful, but man, they've done like 7 different variations of buffs to that boss, and it's still out of control, which is just crazy. Next,
out of interest, sorry, I was just wondering how long did it take you to greenlog the original Nightmare?
Well, I didn't even greenlog it. That's the crazy thing, because I spent just about 1,200 hours going for a mace. So I think I spent just about 1,150 hours, which 150 of those hours was just running to Nightmare. Like literally just 150 hours of just running. It was like nearly a week of real game time of running to the boss, which is just crazy. And I think I spent like 1150 hours, and then when Phosani's came out, I got the mace, because that was my original intention, was just to get the mace. So I spent like 9 months straight every single day grinding Nightmare. Never got the mace. Day one of Phosani's got the mace, which is funny.
Of course,
and then I was still missing the Eldritch, so I think I grinded like another 200 or so Phosani's after that. I got another mace, which is crazy, like 100 kills later, and then I never ended up getting the Eldritch. But a total of about 1,200 plus hours spent at Nightmare.
Yeah, and I guess that's what we're talking about. It's just about, can we limit those 1,200-hour grinds to just something a bit more reasonable, slightly more reasonable.
Yeah. And next, I think just needs a slight buff, and that's mainly because Oathplate came out. I didn't really like their decision to nerf the drop rates of Yama, but I definitely understood. I think it was just a 30% nerf. But I really feel like the reason they did it was just because of how absurd. I don't even think it's super absurd, but it definitely is just barely crossing that threshold, in my opinion, of too many hours to spend at Nex. And I think Nex could even be toned back a little bit.
Yeah, probably. Speaking about Yama, I thought Yama release was it was kind of annoying, because a lot of people made a lot of money, didn't they? Because the drop rates were pretty good on release.
Yeah, it was only not changed for like, I think the first 3 days or something. They had the slightly better rates, but
it's insane. Sorry, I'm going slightly off topic. I hope you don't mind here.
Yeah, go for it.
Just, it's noticeable, isn't it? And you've probably discussed this with other guests, how good I don't know if it's AI technology, probably is, like AI bot creating technology. It was noticeable for me starting with Colosseum. You hear stories now about how they have these bots up in, what is it, like a week or less than a week, that can just fully do all the hardest content in the game. And Yama, I think on Behemoth, Tasty talks about this, didn't he? There was this Reddit post which was like 64% or something ridiculous of the top players at Yama were bots, weren't they? And I don't know to what extent that Jagex can actually do something about it. I know Mod Matt K came out recently saying they were pretty much screwed for now. But I know recently they've maybe made some inroads to bot busting. I'm not too sure, but it's not nice, is it, to see new content being so heavily botted?
Yeah, it's awful. That's a whole nother can of worms to open of just the whole botting situation. And I'm not knowledgeable, really. I'm not either. I just think it's very clear, though, that many more resources need to be poured into botting, and there are such easy things to fix. I harp on about this so fucking much. My audience is probably so annoyed with it, but just the rampant advertising on the GE and other saturated areas like LMS lobby and all these areas where there's just advertising going on and OnlyFans shit being promoted and random gambling POH clan halls being promoted. It's everywhere and nothing can be done about it. And I just got news on what, just somebody commented, he's a PMod, and I was mistaken. I thought PMods were able to temporarily mute accounts for 24 hours. No, it's 1 hour. They can mute accounts for 1 hour. Really? That's the extent of their power. And I'm like, dude, this is fucking pathetic. Like, you could do so much more so fucking easily with zero resources, basically, in order to just combat this problem of how bad it looks, like the stain it looks of just bots and malicious scammers and all these people that are just at the Grand Exchange and other saturated areas. Like, just clean that up at least. That's so easy. And then the other difficult things, you just got to pour more resources into it. It would just be so good for the game.
Yeah, definitely. Like, with new players, I know there's not many new players, but if someone's coming back to the game after a long time, the first thing you often see, Lumbridge spawn, GE, is just like, just all of that stuff. And if you don't know what to look out for, you might be naive enough to go to these websites, and that's not good. That's not a good look. So yeah, definitely a problem that needs to be looked into. Yeah.
Okay, let's touch on CAs. Now, it sounded like you held a different view than I hold, which is you think, and you kind of said like maybe other players also hold this, is that CA rewards can feel underwhelming. I'll just say right off the bat, I do think CA rewards should be very, very tame. And I think they're actually pretty good where they're at. I think the cosmetic nature of it is the better route to go down. But I want to hear your argument for what you would want to see and why.
Well, actually, the majority of what I would like to see, and I probably shouldn't have piled people in with me. I don't know what other people
But you're
think.
right. You're right. I have seen that sentiment as well, though, of people wanting CAs to be more rewarding, so it's more incentivized to do.
I think a very good update was 2-minute thralls for master. Because I don't think it's realistic to make people grind a grandmaster for stuff that you really do need. That's not fair. So I liked that update. What I would like, I think this more links in with maybe the dry protection stuff, but more like this concept I have of the lucky penny actually being lucky. I would like them to buff the lucky penny a lot more. So just be a bit more creative with the lucky penny. Maybe like however the RNG boost would work, maybe a one-off RNG boost with a cosmetic item only, for example. Or maybe if you're green logged apart from a mega rare and you're an Iron Man, it could help you. I don't know how exactly it would work, but I would like, it's just such, when I grinded Grandmaster, I get that not many players are going to do that. I understand that. So just adding something a bit more, I think that maybe they could make clues even more common, for example. I don't think it's that noticeable, the difference with clue drops, so that could be improved. Maybe that like small passive RNG buff on the lucky penny. Maybe adding a second slot at master for the lucky penny so that you can have it with a blessing or with arrows or whatever else without having to wear a quiver. I don't actually know if it goes in a quiver, but I think that the amount of hours that people put into grinding it, I think it's just does to me feel a little bit underwhelming. What you get is, I just think they could do more with it, and I think that maybe quality of life stuff could be tied into lower levels a bit more. Past that, I think they're pretty good, but I think that the amount of hours you put into that grind doesn't feel like it equals what you get. That's basically my problem with it. And it felt a bit like when I was doing Grandmaster, it didn't feel worth it. And I don't think Grandmaster's worth it because it's literally just for the helm to flex that. And if you're an Inferno speedrunner, probably worth it, but I'm not. In retrospect, I probably wouldn't have ground it. I think it's because I'm a completionist. And when it came out, Grandmaster, funnily enough, I was just like, hell no, I am not touching that. That's too much stress in my life. And what the hell are those speed times? And when it came out, it just looked impossible. Grandmaster, it literally thought it was impossible. And now it's a lot more achievable. I think that's part of the reason why I think the rewards could be improved, because especially Master Tier, a lot more players are capable of that now. And potentially just tying it into quality of life stuff could be good as well. One thing that I don't like about about the combat achievements is I just don't. I like with the speeds. I like it when they had, for example, at Yama, they had the average time. I thought that was a lot fairer than, for example, Vardorvis. I hated grinding that, or Whisperer. Even if you don't lose ticks, even if you're a tick perfect player, it's still really hard. I found it hard, at least without losing many ticks. So I think small things like that could be changed. But overall, what I would say about the aside from the rewards, I think that retrospectively, I think the combat achievements were a really good update, because they forced a lot of players, to genuinely understand the game better and to engage with content better. Because if you know how your character's moving, if you know how ticks work, if you know, one tick flicking works, that really helps you in the game. And it really helped me. Like, getting Grandmaster really helped me play the game better. And yes, it is a bit sweaty, but I would recommend, if you're like not sure, I would dip your toes into it, and you'll actually start enjoying. A lot of people will start enjoying how much more you understand the movement and the PVM side of things. I actually think that was really enjoyable. That's kind of my take on it. Yeah.
When did you first achieve Zuckhelm? Was it just recent?
No, so I got it back in early 2024, I believe.
Okay. And how have you felt about the upkeep of it? Like whenever new CAs come out, are you okay with that system?
It's a hard one. I think that if you have put in the effort to get the Zuckhelm, you should be able to keep putting in effort to maintain it, because it's a very prestigious item. So like I think it's fair. I think it's fair to keep re-earning the Zuckhelm. And like for example with the Doom achievements, yes, it like I rolled my eyes when I saw them because I was like, oh, here we go again. But then I actually got better at Doom, a lot better at Doom when I did those achievements. It made me really think about how the mechanics worked. And yes, like it can be a pain in the ass. I do see that. But once I'd finished it, I really had a sense of accomplishment. And before I did the achievements, I was getting to like floor 11 most runs. And then now I can get to floor 20 pretty easily just because I engaged with that content. So I guess that's what I mean. And I think that, yes, I do agree with combat achievements coming out more and more and more, as long as it's not excessive. And I think maybe they could have done with like 4 less achievements. I think there was a few too many probably for Doom. Have you got your helm back?
No, I don't even play Sae Bae anymore. There's many reasons for it, but I've just been playing my new iron for the most part.
Yeah, no, fair. I did actually see your video recently about that. Sorry. Yeah.
No, and what's crazy is playing this new Iron Man, I see all the cool parts of CAs now again, because it's just me grinding CAs. So I almost resonate more with the people that were always like, CAs are perfectly fine the way they are. It's like they are perfectly fine until you get Zuckhelm for the 8th time in a row. It just literally, it's all fucking great. It's like you're just having fun. You're getting dopamine hits. And then getting Zuckhelm is the pinnacle of it. And then from there on out, it's just like, God damn it. Like you keep losing. That's the overall sentiment, is losing something you've already obtained repeatedly. It's just not a great system, in my opinion. It's just not the way it should be. I don't feel like you should be constantly losing the things you've already obtained.
It's a bit too FOMO-y, isn't it? It's
just exhausting. It's like you're never done with it. It's just like, can I just be done? Can I just have accomplished it? Look at achievement diaries. Achievement diaries, it's not like every single thing that comes out you have to obtain your achievement diary cape. It's like that is a one and done thing. Like you're good. And even the Lumbridge diary, you don't like lose the ability to use a fairy ring when a quest comes out. You could still use it. Yeah. And even beyond CAs, I even think Quest Cape should act the same way. I think as soon as you've achieved the Quest Cape at any point, you should be able to enjoy those perks and wear that cape. I think the trim right now, the trim is just based on if you have both the achievement diary and the Quest Cape. I think the trim should just be signaling that you are up to date with it. Similar to how I want to see the Zuckhelm. The Zuckhelm glowy eyes would be just a signaling of I am up to date with this. But at some point, if you don't have the glowy eyes, you have at some point achieved Zuckhelm, and you get all the perks for lifetime, and you get the helmet for lifetime, but you're just not up to date with it, which is just that extra trim.
I like the eyes idea. I think that's nice because it's like a sort of additional bit of prestige. And what is very frustrating is logging onto an old account. Or not an old account, an alt account, for example, that you might not have touched for a while, and you've had Quest Cape and it's gone, and you've got 6 quests to do. That's such an insanely frustrating feeling. Yeah. So yeah, definitely like things like that. 100% would be nice to just keep. Yeah.
You know what? Let's actually touch on early OSRs, because you had experienced the very early days, and I think you were just talking about when Thurko was on. Memories that you now remember of like, wow, yeah, the game used to be like that. And even just to throw in some extra elements for my audience is like beyond alting being a bannable offense. They also like voted no on being able to rotate your camera with the middle mouse button, and voted no to all these little quality of life things because the community was so purist minded. Like they just wanted, they didn't want any real changes to be made with the game, and they were so cautious about everything. So I want to hear your take on the beginning of old school, because I'm assuming you started day one, right?
Yep, day one. Yep.
And how was that? And how do you see the game then versus now? Little themes that you've seen along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just going to give a bit of context because I think it will help with understanding why it was like that. I'm sure many of the listeners played, obviously, like the original RuneScape before it became what is now known as RuneScape 3. The worst, I just remember the horrible crushing feeling of logging into the evolution of combat. That was the day that my favorite game died, and that's a horrible thing to experience. It really wasn't fun. And I remember logging in thinking, this isn't the same game, logging out and never logging back in again. And I think a lot of people had a similar experience to me. And that is where the whole stuff with sort of Modmark making that big announcement about evolution of combat, no one really had a say, nothing we could do. That is where this, I guess, trauma of the game being destroyed before our eyes made all these people who left the game really upset. And I think that's fair. I think that's fair that people felt strongly about that. So then when the poll came for, we can have a small team and make old school RuneScape, people were really excited. And I remember the hype, and I remember thinking, oh, that's super cool. So I voted for it. That's great. And then I think that feeling, that kind of frustration, that anger that came from that update, that kind of split the player base, it fueled the creation of old school, because that's why an old school RuneScape needed to be made, because people wanted to feel like how that game made them feel before, that warm fuzzy feeling of nostalgia. And that's exactly what old school did for me on release. That's why I love it so much still, because it has that. And I think that was why I loved the sort of early days. I still love the game, but I especially love those early days. And what happened was, it was a small team. Every player was sort of very fierce about, we don't want anything to change. Any change was seen as truly, truly evil. So I remember a good example of this was the Grand Exchange. So one of the what you used to have to do in the first few months of RuneScape, I don't remember how long, you would go to Varrock West Bank, and you would trade for your potions, you'd trade for your sharks, so you could do your Slayer or whatever. And yeah, there was a lot of scamming and stuff, but that was just like, okay, this is how it is. And we everyone got used to it. And then the G was polled, and I think a lot of people find it funny that a lot of people were against the GE. Mm-hmm. I think there was some weird thing like a trading booth or something that there was like a board that you'd go up to. They wanted to make a middle ground. I don't remember the name of it.
Yeah, the trading post. I wasn't there for it, but I heard a lot about it, and that was the sort of middle ground of an old school version of a GE.
This is an example of how conservative they were being, because they were feeding off the player base being so anxious about change. And it was so funny, because I was thinking about this before we spoke today, and I was so anti-GE. I hated it. I didn't even want the trading post. I wanted to keep trading at Varrock West Bank, because I was just like, no, we don't need it. It's just going to cause problems. And I think that's hilarious looking back, because obviously we do need the GE. The game wouldn't have survived if we didn't have the GE. But that's an example of where we were at. And the time investment as well. This is another element. The time you needed to do skills. Nothing was min-max back then. I mean, there was obviously the most efficient methods, but you didn't have many videos detailing them. So you kind of needed to know good players. And in my case, I kind of knew Zulu at the time, and I think I annoyed him quite a bit. I PM'd him a lot, like, oh, what did you do for Runecraft? What did you do for this? What did you do for smithing? And I would just kind of copy what Zulu was doing, because I think he was very early to max as well. And I remember, superheating ores just very click intensive. I did double nats, I think, from 91 to 99, 92 to 99, and then the money from that went into other skills. So just a hugely different meta. But it was like it made it a completely different game. It was grindy. You put the hours in, and everyone just accepted that, and no one wanted anything to change. And I think what happened was we got like maybe 2 years in. That's a guess. And the player count started getting really bad because it was too grindy. Like everything was too hard. Everything took too long. No one was able to invest, or very few people, I being one of them, could invest thousands and thousands of hours into getting the account progression you wanted. So I think it was down to like 25,000 players. I'm just pulling these numbers out of nowhere. It was very low player count. And it kind of got to a point where I think Colonello, I don't know how you say his name, he made a video talking about how it looked like Old School was going to die quite soon after it was made. And I think I didn't realize at the time how close it did get to dying. And I think that, yeah, that was a turning point. And that was when because of that, I think the community started realizing they needed to trust the team a bit more. And I think that RuneScape 3 realized the Old School team needed more funding, more people to work in it, because otherwise it would die. And thankfully, both those things changed. The funding got a bit better. They got more mods, more developers, and I think the community slowly over time just began to ease up a little bit, trust the team a bit more, because I think the big thing was that loss of trust from the evolution of combat, and that took a long time to come back, a very long time. But I do feel like a lot of players, I mean, I've got it back. Look at where the game is now, and I think that that's only happened through a very slow, painstaking process of kind of just giving a bit more trust, inch by inch, to the Jagex team.
Now,
so yeah, I guess that's
let me ask you just a couple questions on that, because I do like that sort of overview. What do you think Jagex did right that you didn't think was good at the time? I mean, you mentioned GE. Is there anything that you still to this day think that they should have gone a different route with? Like, do you feel like there were blunders that they made that still have a lasting negative effect on the game? Do you have any examples of that at all? And if not, I mean, what do you think were probably the best things that they have done for the game that have sort of made it the success it is today?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think that I think in terms of blunders, nothing really bad sticks out. The time, I kind of not quite answering the question there, but I will get onto it. Is part of the reason that Old School was dying was, I think, there was DDoS attacks for a long time. So I remember being at Corp, and you'd get DDoSed, and at the time you had no gravestones. So they would DDoS you for your items. A lot of people don't know about that. You get whole servers going, they'd pick up your items and they'd real world trade them. And that was obviously really bad for the game. And that was happening for a long time. And I think that if there was one thing I could say, is that I felt really bad for the team at the time, because they clearly couldn't do anything about it quickly. They were probably understaffed and under funded, so they couldn't quickly respond. And I think that was part of why a lot of things were going wrong. So yeah, in retrospect, if they could have done something about that quicker, that would have been good. In terms of like why the game has flourished so much, I think it's partly to do with just how good the original game is that the Gower brothers made. I mean, this is like the top of my games list of all time. I genuinely think this is the best game ever made, and I think it's a mixture of the way that dopamine is slowly drip fed to you over time, how your goals really feel meaningful, how progression really does feel like, it feels like most of the time the hours you put in are really earned, And I think that the number one thing, I think it's going back to the community engagement, how rare that is to have it in a game like this, where it's, it's a democratic system. It's like an old Greek form of voting. It's majority rules over 70% and it passes. And I think that's really unique and really powerful. And the reason they've done that is because they knew, I mean, my opinion, the reason that it's like that and so transparent is because they knew how much trust had been lost from the old RuneScape. And that, I think that's the main reason, is the way they've been very transparent about voting majorities, and that's been the key to the success. If I had to choose the number one thing, it would be that.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's so crazy because looking back at some of the blunders I thought were made, there's still updates that I'm still in full disagreement with. But overall, the overview of it from 1,000 feet up, they never made any blunders that were like game killers or something that really has had an impact on the player base. It seems like the over the grand scheme of things, like they've done a great job of continuing that player growth. So yeah, I mean, I could just start listing things that I have personal grievances with, but overall, I still will say that we're in the golden age, which is crazy. Yeah. Like that's an impressive thing to have done, especially with how picky I am. People know how picky I am toward this game, and to have me saying this is the golden age of the game is quite impressive for a game that's almost now been out for 13 years and having had so many opportunities to make huge errors. So
yes, it's impressive. I mean, out of interest, what do you think about the sort of WoW players coming over at the moment? I assume you think it's a good thing, maybe not. Have you got any takes on it?
No, it is a good thing. I'm always happy to see the game thrive, and I'm glad to see one of the coolest parts, and I mentioned this in one of my rambles, was how nice it was to see a quality of life pull. I mean, that was like the whole sailing, or not sailing, what am I talking about? Slayer little like update thing that they're just reworking Slayer. And that was at the very like peak of all these players jumping in, where it feels like you'd be heavily encouraged to drop just a bunch of new updates just to like keep all those new players around. But no, they stuck to their roots and they're like, no, we're going to make some good quality of life and very much focus on improving old aspects of the game, which I'm just like, damn, like you just earned my respect for not freaking out about how big the game's getting right now and to stick to like what has worked, which is improving older content, balancing stuff, reworking things that feel awful in this game. And I'm just very impressed with how they've been handling it. They haven't made any rash decisions. And I think overall seeing the game in a good light, because Jagex, I feel like they've always had a shitty reputation with like player support and things. But overall, if you look at other gaming companies, Jagex is actually like up there with like the best reputations in my opinion now. Like they have so many issues, but so many other gaming companies are so dog shit that we look good. Like our game looks so good in comparison to other games that have like really sort of milked their player base hard and don't really value them as much. I mean, we are so valued here. The devs work directly with creators and with the player base. We have votes. They haven't ever added microtransactions, which to me is one of the absolute biggest factors in the success of this game. And the reason I love it so much is like not having totally tainted the game with microtransactions. And it would be so easy for them to do that. It would probably kill the game, but they could also make a shit ton of money by slowly drip feeding microtransactions into this game. And I'm like, thank God they respect the game enough and their players enough to not do that.
And it's super rare. I mean, it is super rare. I don't know. If there's another big MMO that does it, but I almost any game that you look at that was once good has just been milked to death with microtransactions. Everyone knows it's a big issue. No one can do anything about it. But that is definitely something I should have mentioned, is the microtransaction angle, because maybe I could have dealt with Evolution of Combat. I might have actually enjoyed that game, but then seeing things like Squeal of Fortune, oh my God, was that a slap in the face? Because it was like, not only are we completely changing the game you love, without your input, we are now adding hideous microtransactions to the game.
Yep.
And that might be a bit strongly worded, but I really do hate
that's
that.
not strongly enough. That is such a slap to the face. And they thought they could just do whatever because everyone's addicted, so we'll just completely start milking all of our children customers, by the way. Like everyone was a fucking child back then, so it was bad.
Messed up. And I haven't done much research, but I bet you that, like you say, the reputation, they are for a company to be able to hold off the investors and such and say, no, we're standing our ground, however the hell they've managed to do that is very impressive, because 99% of the time in the gaming industry, you get investors, they'll be like, well, it doesn't make sense for us to just slowly milk the game for it being a good game over 10 years instead of just this, it's like a crypto pump and dump. Why don't we just pump and dump the game and make 10 times more profit 10 times faster? And thank God Jagex have somehow managed to avoid that tragic situation that most games fall into.
Yeah, we are definitely blessed, and I think it's definitely good to recognize it. And I'm glad the community will call out Jagex on their bullshit, like that early survey in January of this year, like that we did not let up on that. Like hell no. Like we all literally that week there were no other posts. I kid you not. There's zero other posts other than talking and just shitting on that survey on the 2007 Skate Reddit. That is every single post was that. And it was like,
gotta respect it.
Damn. Yeah. We have a great community that is taking zero bullshit. Like we're all entering our 30s. And we just are like, you know what? We are not going to let you do this kind of shit. Like we will leave your game. We will make your game die and suffer if you're going to treat us like that.
Yeah, so absolutely.
I love it.
That's the power a community can have. And they know now that if they try it again, they're not going to be able to do a pump and dump, are they? Because we'll all just stop playing. I mean, some people keep trying, but if they make it behind a paywall, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah. And the reputation alone kills games. I mean, because the game wouldn't die overnight. I can't imagine a situation where everybody would just or the vast majority of people would quit or anything, but the reputational damage and just the community damage of this game's shit now. Like nobody plays it. If you play it, we're kind of judging you low key because there's just so much cultural impact of a community completely disowning a game that can have lingering effects that can completely destroy a game. Like look at RS3. The culture of RS3, if you were an OSRS player, even if you never played RS3, the meme was RS3 sucks. Like this game sucks. And literally that would, because of that mentality, I never even attempted to play it. A lot of it was just peer pressure. It was just nobody else thinks this game is good, and then that cascades into other people that have never played it saying the game is bad, and I was saying the game is bad. It's just, this is brutal for the game. I have no idea how big of an effect just that community sentiment had on the game's numbers, because you see the game was dying, but how much of that prevented literally that prevented growth from that game. Because people that are a lot less biased will say RS3 is a great game. It's really fun. They got a lot of cool things to it. And people can't appreciate it because the overall sentiment of the gaming community is RS3 sucks. And that is horrible. Yeah.
I've got a couple friends who still play RuneScape 3 from the old days. And I feel a bit sorry for them because like you said, it's kind of a meme. About how bad RuneScape 3 is, and again, I think it just goes back to that reputational damage, and it's not fair because I think it's put a lot of players off from going and independently, unbiased, playing RuneScape 3 for the game it is. And I tell you what, I bet you, if a load of people tried, a load of them would probably really enjoy it, and I think I probably could enjoy RuneScape 3 as well, personally.
Yeah, no, I think I could too, but only Iron Man. The fact that Iron Man exists there where there isn't, you can't really abuse microtransactions. That's amazing.
Yeah, Iron Man mode. Yeah,
and people are enjoying the leagues. They have a leagues in RuneScape running right now, and people have been, old school players have been really enjoying it. So
it's good to see. I like that. Yeah.
So now
I think you go ahead.
Well, I was going to switch topics. There's a few other things I want to touch on, which is, you mentioned old school being the best video game of all time, and you are a gamer, and I want to hear, in our DM we were talking about like top 5 video games of all time, and I want to hear what your top 5 list is.
So I've purposely not made a list because I wanted it to come out naturally. I didn't want to overthink it. So I'll go with the top 5. And number 5, I did think of number 5. Number 5 is Mario Kart DS. So
okay,
bit of a random one, this.
Yeah.
But the way I thought I would approach my favorite games are the amount of time I've spent playing them, and the sort of amount of skill it takes to play them as well. I think that has a part in it, and how it makes me feel. So some people listening might have played Mario Kart DS. Have you ever played it yourself?
No, I've played Mario Kart, not on the DS. I used to play Mario Kart Wii, or the Wii version.
So I'll keep it short, but it's kind of an interesting game because if you played Mario Kart, when you kind of boost around corners, you get that special boost that you can get from like the flames. So Mario Kart DS is very unique in that you can. So you had these on the DS. You had these little pads on the end, on the top, and you could press them whilst turning to get a boost on Mario Kart DS. But the thing that made it an insanely skill-based game online and offline is that you could constantly boost. So like every second you could do a boost, and basically your fingers were. I remember out of any game that damages your hands, Mario Kart DS is number 1 because your fingers, they're like claws around your DS, and there's this tiny little screen, and I played it so long because it had a competitive scene, and I tried to get into it competitively, but I wasn't good enough. I played it so long that I went through, I think, 3 DSs because I actually hit the pads so much that it disconnected the wires from the bottom screen to the top screen.
Jesus.
And yeah, I mean, if anyone's interested, there's a good summoning salt video on some Mario Kart DS World Records, and it's just insane how some of these old games on these tiny consoles are so insanely skill based. It really is unbelievable.
I need to jump in before you continue the list, which speaking of like breaking your hands and stuff, I don't think I've ever told this on a cast, but I used to play this game called Critical Ops on the iPhone, and it was basically like a CSGO clone. The game's probably gone to shit since I was playing it, I don't know, 9 years ago, when it was still in like its infancy without it being tainted by microtransactions and whatever else. Yeah. But what was so cool about the iPhone is that it does have like gyroscope like mechanics, so you can kind of like move your iPhone, and that allows you to aim. Little movements of it, so you'd get into like this perfect position, but what you had to do to play absolutely optimally, because you could always just play with your 2 thumbs and have one on like your guy moving and then one kind of aiming and then shooting with the button, but you could never reach that top echelon of like being a super gamer that could just fucking win every match unless you decided to like really start going like cyclone mode on your screen, where like you would literally have to use your like the side of your pointer finger on the screen, and you'd have to like remap the buttons, which you could have like full customization on. You'd have to make the firing button way up in the top right corner, because what you didn't ever want to do is, tilting like the camera with your thumb, you weren't able to simultaneously pan your camera and also shoot at the same time if you did that. So you'd have to have like a separate finger always on the shoot button so that you could move and also press shoot at the same time. But it was so fucking awkward to learn that because you're so used to using your thumb to shoot. But now you're using the side of your pointer finger to shoot while also simultaneously panning. So like if a guy's running across the hallway, you'd simultaneously tilt your phone with the gyroscope and tilt with your thumb to get perfect precision. And then on top of that, use your pointer finger to shoot. And then if you really wanted to go crazy with it, you'd have other buttons on your left pointer finger that would be like switching weapons and reloading, so you'd never have to stop moving to like reload. It was just crazy. But I remember watching like this YouTuber that said like this is how you perfectly set up to be optimized, and it was just, dude, my fucking fingers would cramp up so bad. Like it was painful to play ultimately. And yeah, anyway, I needed to share that because it's that just the hand breaking nature of certain like competitive games like that.
Would you ever get cramp in your fingers? My fingers used to cramp up.
Oh
like
yeah,
crazy.
it was fucking bad, dude. And it felt like it never went away. Like I was addicted to Guitar Hero, and I remember experiencing cramping moving from like medium mode to hard and then expert. Just because you had to like stretch your pinky to the orange button. But over time, you kind of just get used to it. With these iPhone games, I swear to God, it just never got better. It got worse. It was just like, I never got used to it. It was so painful.
I mean, getting good at that game it would be impressive, but that sounds crazy hard. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Okay, so I'm thinking about number 4.
Mm-hmm.
A few are coming to mind, but I'm not sure how to place them. So I'll go with the first one that I thought of, which is Goldeneye on Nintendo 64.
Hell yeah.
As you can tell, I'm showing my age a bit with these picks, but we'll go with it. There's a couple. Well, there's 2 main reasons, but I absolutely love this for nostalgia. That's number 1 because I used to play this. I first got my Nintendo. I mean, late 90s, so long ago, and I just played the shit out of GoldenEye, and it was so hard. I mean, I remember trying to the controller. Now I tried to use one recently. They're like impossible to hold. The grip is awful, and you move the joystick, and the red dot like flies across the screen. You can't aim at the guy's head.
It's fucking horrible. I don't know how we ever played that. Even GameCube was horrible.
But you know what? It's like part of the charm. It's like KQ. It's just part of the jank,
Yep.
and I kind of love that, but. It's what it is. It's just, unlocking core memories of I used to play with my mom and my dad, and it was so much fun to just not know what the hell you were doing. The internet wasn't even that big back then for me, and I wouldn't even think about looking at a guide or anything. So I had to work it out all on my own. And it just created such a sense of satisfaction finishing that game. Without looking at the guide, none of that min-max stuff going on that we have with video games nowadays. And it's just such a pure, innocent gaming experience. So that's why I'm putting it number 4. And
I'm going to just interrupt again, just talking about GoldenEye, because I did play GoldenEye, but I mainly played 007 Nightfire on GameCube. That was like my core 007 experience.
Another great game. Yeah.
And do you remember Skyrail, the one where there's like a castle at the top? It was a map of like a castle. It was
a snow map.
Yeah, it was a snow map, and then there was like a bottom like kind of like house that you'd be in. And then there was like a Skyrail that you could run on the whole thing and get to the castle and back. And then there's also like a little like trolley thing you could be on that take you up there.
That shit was so good, that game. Did you ever play it like split screen?
Yes, dude, I'd fucking do quad split screen where you're basically dealing with like a total of 1,000 pixels to see fucking everything. It was so bad to look at, but at the time it was amazing. And normal split screen, because I would always play it with my friend, and dude, what was so cool is they did have like the AI bots that you could use, that you could like do a map and you could summon up to like 6 really, really impossible bots. So my friend and I would just basically take over that house. Like we'd be like, hey, we need to defend this fucking base, and we're gonna have 6 super giga AIs come at us basically. And it was like the most terrifying thing ever, because we'd be on the roof and we'd be trying to snipe them, and we'd be missing and whatever, and trying to shoot fucking sentinels at them, just like guided missiles to try to shoot them. And we'd get a lot of them, but then eventually one would hop in and we're like, oh fuck, like block the fucking staircase. Like it was fucking terrifying, because those super difficult AIs had like this pinpoint accuracy where they'd be facing a different way, and if you like approach their radius, they'd make like a 180 like no scope, just boom, headshot, you're dead. Like it was fucking terrifying. So we started developing strategies of like both being on the roof on a different side of the roof and just aiming directly at the staircase, waiting for them to come up. And if we waited more than like a split second, they would shoot one of us, and then like the other, like the other one of us would die. But we had this perfectly mapped out where like we would both shoot at the same time, and like if both of us, at least if one of us hit, like we'd be able to keep protected. But it was fucking terrifying, and so many core memories are from that game and that map in particular. Oh,
you're really bringing the memories back. That I tell you what, anyone listening, if you want a real fun multiplayer split screen experience, it's so shit nowadays. Split screen, I don't think you can even do it on most of them. Get Nightfire for the GameCube. It's so much fun.
yes, it's so good.
Yeah.
All right, what's number 3? Let's hear it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a bit torn again, but I'm gonna go with.
And is this list including number 1 as old school RuneScape? So we're only going to hear number 3 and number 2 now, or are you saying old school is its separate category?
I'm going to assume old school is the best game ever made in my eyes, so I'm not going to include it.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to say number. Is it okay? Sorry, is it okay to just quickly go back to Goldeneye quickly?
Yes, please.
Sorry, I know this is a bit long-winded.
No, don't even. I definitely went on the whole Nightfire rant, so go for it.
It's just about speedrunning, because the reason I put that for is because I love watching speedruns. I don't speedrun myself, and they've got an incredibly like detailed lore about the speedrun history of that game, and I used to watch White Goose. I think something happened with his channel, but he's now called Goose's Gamer Folklore, and I really love his channel. And it's just so interesting hearing the stories about these guys who became speedrunners and speedrunning that game. And you would see these old video recordings from GoldenEye, like 1998, literally filmed on a potato, and there's like no pixels. And I just love that sort of thing. I don't know why. So that's part of why I love that.
Yes.
Number 3, I'm gonna go for the Crash Bandicoot series.
Ooh, on PlayStation 1?
Yes, PlayStation 1, but the series, but PlayStation 1 is the one I played the most. So I've got the newer one on Switch, but yeah, PlayStation 1 was like the experience. And I think for me, you can tell I love nostalgia because that's where my list is going. But yeah, it was such a difficult game. It still is. Like as an adult, I played the Switch one recently. It's still so hard. And I just remember as a kid, I'd go around to my friend's house and actually beating a level was a huge achievement because we'd have to we'd die, hand it to the next person, die, hand it to the next person. And I think that it was just such a good feeling when you beat a level on Crash Bandicoot. So that's why I'm going to put it number 3. And I also like the speed element as well, how you could go back and time trial it and do fast times and get the extra gems as well.
Which was your favorite? Because it was like original. Because I'm thinking Crash Bandicoot 1 on PlayStation 1, Crash Bandicoot 2, Cortex Strikes Back, and Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped. Like, are those the games you're talking about in particular?
Yeah, the PS1 series.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe the one I played the shit out of was Cortex Strikes Back.
Okay, so that was the one with like the jetpacks and the polar bear stuff, a lot of like the polar bear levels and stuff.
And the annoying skiddy ice, all of that good stuff.
Dude, so I was a Warped kid. Like that was my jam. Like I went like that's actually probably one of the greatest games of all time in my books, just because of how fucking it's just a masterpiece of a game. And the levels were difficult, and then at the end, and you're getting these constant cool upgrades to your guy, and then at the I think at the end of like the 4th thing you get a bazooka, and then at the end of the 5th you get like super speed where you can actually do the like all the time trials. And I would grind time trials for hours after school trying to go for the platinums. Like I got fucking obsessed with that game. It was amazing.
That's why I'm putting it up as well, because it's like as a gamer, that's like a core moment. There's such a hard game, and it really builds up your like resiliency and competitiveness. A game like that,
totally,
and it's so well designed, so well made, and I can see why you like it as well, because the time trials. Once you completed the game, you then revisit the game with time trials, and it's so replayable. So number 2, I'm gonna put Skyrim as number 2.
Hell yeah.
I just think I was going to put it 1, but I think it's there's one that's pipped it out, but Skyrim, I don't know if it needs much explanation. It's such a when it came out, games just didn't feel as good as that, and it felt like it changed the whole like triple A plus what you expect from a game. It was a really revolutionary game. So immersive, so in depth, so many quests to do, and yeah, I still play it sometimes. I think it's a really good game, Skyrim. And all the mods they have now are great as well that I see. So,
What are your thoughts on Oblivion?
I didn't really play Oblivion.
Okay.
I kind of I got a bit bored of it. I think that maybe the problem was playing Skyrim first. Because
Oh yeah, that would completely taint it.
Yeah, it made Oblivion look so dated. And I spoke to a friend who grinded it, and he just said it's so good, but it's a bit. His criticism was it's a bit like it's a bit dated now. You can see they've copied and pasted a lot of textures and such in the game. Yeah. That's what he said.
That's fair.
But yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts? Do you like Skyrim, Oblivion?
I never really played them that much, to be completely honest. I definitely played both games a little bit, and I loved that atmosphere. Like I love games like that. I like the idea of playing those games. I think these days I'm not quite as much of a gamer as I used to be, but I used to play like Skyrim clones on the iPhone. I was definitely more of like a mobile gamer back then, and like there was a game called like Erelon, Sword and Shadow on the iPhone that was very similar to that. There was like Raven Sword that was very similar, and there's some other like older sort of RPG games. I love that RPG element, but I think having played so much RuneScape these days, I just can't immerse myself so much into single player games these days.
I get you, and that's why a lot of my list are like those older games.
Yeah,
when I had the time to play them. So number one is Ocarina of Time, Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time.
Damn, hell yeah, great choice.
Yeah, I couldn't pick Skyrim over that. I just think it's, again, it kind of goes back to that Goldeneye era, and it was just such a magical feeling. We didn't even think of using the internet for guides. I grinded out the game with my dad. So, like on a Sunday evening, we might do 3 hours. It took us, I think we were trying to remember recently, it took us like 3 years to finish the game from when we started it. Something ridiculous. Because we weren't using guides. We were playing like quite rarely. But I just remember learning the puzzles, the temples. It's just such a beautiful, well-made game, and I still like watching speedrunners. So there's a guy called ZFG1 who gets world records and stuff, and I still love watching the game just because it just hits that nostalgia so hard, and such so insane, like GoldenEye. Yes, it's a bit clunky, but it's such an insanely well-made game for the time it came out as well.
And the speedrunning scene's insane.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
still so active.
Yeah,
it's still so active. Like you say, they've got randomizers now. These streams still pull in thousands of views, and there's a really funny. I mean, there's some really funny mechanics in it. So if some of you might know of a character called Dampe. Are you aware of this character?
No.
So it's actually, if you've ever seen the guy with the coffin on his back in what's the place called in RuneScape? Morton.
Okay, yeah, just
there's a guy.
Yeah, like right next to the Shades of Morton activity.
Yeah, I think he's based on a character in Ocarina of Time called Dampe. And he was like the grave digger, and I find him, it's very funny because it's like the absolute epitome of RNG in a video game, especially a speed run, because ZFG are the speedrunners. They'd be having an insanely cracked time, and we're talking on 100% Zelda. We're talking like a 4 or 5 hour time, so it's a brutal speed run. And then you'd get halfway through, and you'd have this gravedigger called Dampe, and he would go around the graves, and you'd get him to dig. And there was like I can't remember the RNG. It's like 1 in 18 or something to get this heart piece that you need for 100%. And it could just totally destroy a run if you went dry. So that's just like a funny little extra thing I thought I'd mention.
That's RNG with speed runs can be quite extreme. I think RuneScape's got it pretty bad with as well. But yeah, something like that could completely throw off games. That's unfortunate.
Go ahead, you go.
I was gonna say, have you ever? Because it sounds like you played PS1. Did you ever play the game Legend of Dragoon?
Oh,
I'm guessing not.
for some reason I'm thinking of Spyro, but I'm guessing it's not.
No. Spyro's amazing.
No.
Spyro Year of the Dragon was my game. That was the best version in my opinion.
I haven't heard of that one. What was the Dragoon game?
So Legend of Dragoon was a 4-disc JRPG, and it was just one of the most beautiful games. Like definitely one of my all-time favorite games of just ever. And I know nostalgia definitely has a big role to play in that, but it's kind of like it was like a turn-based game with battles and kind of like Final Fantasy, but it had like the addition system, which it basically, so the battles are not just like click attack. It's like you are now in control of your guy, and you have to like have this rhythmic timing with the attacks lining up with the X button and whatever else. But it was such a fucking beautiful game, and the lore behind it is just so cool. And that game like makes me cry every time I finish it. It's just like, because I used to play it on like in college on my laptop emulator, and just an amazing game. It takes like a few weeks to beat, even understanding it. But
I've just looked it up. That looks like a beautiful game. I think I'd love to play that sometime.
It's so good. So good.
Yeah.
I want to touch on, this is something that we were kind of talking about in our DM, is your recent experience grinding BA. So I don't know what this is going to be about, but I definitely want to hear it, because that's something I feel like I've always been very resistant to BA. That's actually let me look at my achievement diary. Jack Candor, and I have all the elite diaries done except for Karamja, Western Provinces, and then Kandarin's just at medium. It's just pathetic. It's just because I'm just BA.
That's the standard experience with BA. People are very resistant. The reason I wanted to talk about it is because I just think it's quite an interesting story to hear, like, about the community. I think it's quite an under spoken about part of the old school community. It's actually really strong. There's a lot of people who've been playing it for a very long time, and they're insanely cracked at BA. And what really shocked me is the only reason I engaged with BA, I was very much like you until I felt forced to because of the pet, was you start to see the sort of the passion from people, and I really love that. And I remember my clan, we kind of went to BA, and it was the idea of the clan event was just a green log BA. And there was this, it was very dead. I mean, World 306 still does get active sometimes, but it's very dead when we went. And we were struggling. We didn't know what we were doing. And then there was this guy called Legend of BA. And he was like, oh, I'll help you guys out. And we were like, really? Why? What's going on here? And he came into our run, and he started trading us like shrink me quick potions. So he like traded us stuff to make a shrink me quick potion, and he was like, oh yeah, you do this at this tick, and then you click this at this tick. And we were like, what is this guy talking about? Like, this is just BA, like, chill out, man. And then we realized actually it was making the runs a lot faster, and I kind of started getting hooked. And I added this guy, Legend of BA. I think he likes to be referred to as Bob. You can always see him in World 306 most days. And it was quite rare. You don't see that a lot in a game where someone will take the time out of their day to just show you for like an hour, 2 hours, how to do something, trade you the items. And it kind of made me like feel a bit hooked, because I thought, wow, these guys are really passionate. And then I joined this CC called Casual BA. And I found out they go in 306 and they kind of train up players, try and make them good at solo heal games, and just kind of have a bit of fun. They have these. I found out that there's a competitive racing scene in BA as well, and they have Speed BA, which does those quite a bit, has the best BA players. And what you don't realize, what a lot of players don't realize, is that BA is an incredibly, especially the healer defender and the main attacker role, incredibly skill-based things to do. Very, very high skill ceiling. And it's, the best guy, the best healer in the world, Opulent Sage. If you just watch a video by him, go to his channel, his clicks are just insane. This guy is right-clicking food onto a healer every tick consistently. And I just was shocked because I've done hard mode TOBs efficiently. I've gotten some sub 15s. I'm not that good, but I've kind of seen what it takes in CMs to be quick. And I was just shocked at this was like that level of difficulty. And I never expected it from such a janky old minigame. And it was just overall such a nice experience. Most of the players were really nice. Of course, there's always a bit of toxicity. And then I had great fun. I got fairly good at main scrolling. So kind of if you're the one who scrolls players, you have control of the environment. So you can stall things using various different capes and emotes. It's very in-depth. If anyone's interested in how it works, I'd recommend Coxie, his newest pet video. He talks about how he learned the main attacker role there. And it's just so fun because they're like, you can go for the pet, but there's also this kind of competitive scene where you go and do races, and they have them still. If you're interested in casual BA, you can go and ask them about it every Sunday, and they're pretty welcoming to newcomers as well. And you kind of just do 4 races to see who's the best. And I got kind of addicted to it. I think I ground it out for like 9-10 months. And the screenshot I wanted to send you, which I can't find, is my gamble count, which is 2,700 something.
Ooh.
So yeah, that's like 9-10 months of pretty intense grinding. But what ended up happening, and I just thought was interesting, was through the pet grind, I ended up getting really falling in love with this mini game. Just to give you an example of the sort of things I'm talking about here, a defender role, for example, you need to be placing food on certain tiles at certain ticks. And we're talking about 32.4 seconds on the timer, 38.4. You need to be knowing what tick, how much food, where you are. And in terms of like understanding mechanics of the game, it is right up there. So yeah, I just wanted to mention it because I think people sleep on BA as like an enjoyable activity. It's not for everyone, but I would recommend giving it a go because it can be very fun. And the last thing to mention is just shouting out a couple people. So Wild Pump, who I spoke to about this podcast, he's my good friend. We ground a lot in 306, and Elo Luigi, he's just gotten all pets, and he is the officially driest. He was officially the driest, still is, on the gamble count. I think it took him over 5,500 gambles.
So painful.
Yeah, you can imagine, and it's 1 in 1K. And what kind of happened is that he was doing, me and him, we were in 306 and we were kind of grinding a lot. And we started realizing half the issue is downtime because we want to get this pet, right? I love BA, but I want to get the pet. So what he ended up doing, and what we kind of helped people do, was create. Have you ever heard of like double healer runs at all?
I'm very ignorant toward on the metas with BA, so no. I could imagine what that is, but yeah.
That's okay. I'll just briefly explain. So you get the solo healer, you have the defender, you have 2 attackers, and the collector, and that's like what you'd normally do. And then you can do 2 healers. So healer's probably the hardest role. You have to spam, so it's easier to just have 2 healers spamming the monsters to kill them faster. And so what they ended up doing is sort of creating this Discord, 2 healer Discord, and kind of that's like a comfy place for pet hunters to go if they want kind of no downtime runs, because part of the problem we were finding as pet hunters was we were sitting in World 306 and we just couldn't make teams all the time. And it's, as someone like you, like me, we don't like downtime. That was kind of painful. And there ended up being a bit of, I guess, tension in the community as people split away. You have the people with the real passion and the love for BA, and I think what often happens is you end up going to a leech clan. You'll get really good, and so a lot of pet hunters, they kind of, the meta is seen as you go to a leech clan, you get paid really well, and then you use that money to like pay runecraft runners, for example. You can make like 5 5 bill on the BA pet. But then there's been a split in the community where the pet hunters have kind of made their 2 healer thing because it's a lot more chill. You don't need to worry about the strats too much. So it's just, I mean, it's just an interesting anecdote. It was no big story, but I just thought I'd like to mention it as well because I think a lot of people don't realize that the depth that BA can actually have.
It really feels like it's just a familiarity thing. I mean, it's trying to get into something that's so foreign, because BA really is a pretty foreign minigame compared to most. And there's just a lot going on where it's like it's not very intuitive, even though I don't know if you ever used to be forced. I know you can skip the whole tutorial nowadays, but like that whole tutorial barely teaches you anything if you've never touched it. You're like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I don't understand any of this. And it's kind of like the same thing where I've had PKers on. They're like, getting into PKing is like super, super fun and thrilling. It's just for so many people, it's just the biggest hurdle to first get into because of like the skill ceiling and just understanding mechanics properly. But I can totally concede, like basically anything that I've spent time into, you end up sort of loving it, even if initially it's painful. So that's
true.
good to hear about, because I've been really resistant to BA for ever.
Have you got your diaries done?
Not on this account. On Sae Bae, I did. Sae Bae, I grinded it. It was just I finally found a team, and it was I didn't like my experience doing it. I eventually just got it. I was like, it wasn't that bad, but I just never went back.
Yeah, I think what I really love is that it brings out the kind of, when someone loves an element of a game, I love it when people just are willing to spend their time. Like that guy just trading the shrink me potion, telling me how to use it, giving me so much of his time. I think that's really nice in games, that community aspect where you're passing on the knowledge. And like I used to sit in calls with Data Point and Opulent Sage, some of the best healers, and they would sit there with me 4 or 5 hours, and just so I could hit like the best time on a wave. And I never got that good, but it was nice to have that community of people there, and kind of it's a nice feeling. So I'd recommend, if anyone's a bit bored, they always used to say it's like the retirement home for RuneScapers is BA.
Yeah, that's nice to hear about. And I have definitely heard that there is a very strong, passionate community with BA. So it is interesting, and it's always kind of quirky seeing the people that just like don't even play any other aspect of the game. They just kind of get like sucked into, it feels like BA is one of those things that people get really sucked into. So that's cool.
Oh, big time.
Okay, now I definitely want to touch on this. So you are actually a therapist in real life, and you kind of wanted to talk about the therapeutic effects of RuneScape, but also the potential downsides of RuneScape with like video game addiction. So that's definitely something I want to touch on. So let's kind of jump into that, and what exactly made you sort of want to become a therapist as well?
Yeah, so I just for a bit of background, I actually recently left that job, but I'm still kind of in the mental health field, if that makes sense. But it kind of, I think my own experiences with anxiety, I'm very open about having OCD. So that's kind of growing up as like early 20s, late teens, it started kind of emerging, that sort of OCD type thoughts. And I thought that later on, when I didn't know what job to do, I thought it'd be really good to go into something that kind of gave me that satisfaction of being able to use my experience to help others. So that was kind of why I went into it. And I always, part of the reason I love this game so much is that it's quite numbing. I don't know if you find this, but it has a very numbing effect on me, on my brain. And I used to, for example, smoke lots of cigarettes, and that was kind of my way, like one of my ways of coping with what I was going through. And I just thought, when I got a bit older, it's better to at least when I play a game, I'm kind of using my brain, and I'm not smoking, so that's a positive. And I kind of, it gives you that moment when you play a game like RuneScape, lots of games though, not just RuneScape, it kind of gives you that temporary relief if you are someone who has constant anxious thoughts. or your brain's just like really moving at 100 miles per hour. And I think that, you know, the media has overly demonized games and overly criticized them, and they've got a really bad rep. When I even mention to a lot of people that I like playing video games, they don't like, they just, people just don't like it when you say that. They think it's a bit weird, you know. And I just think that's not necessary. So I really think that it should be not seen as a bad thing, but obviously what comes into account is like if it's starting to become where you can't deal with stuff in real life. That's when I started realizing maybe then I need to start, like, still play but just reduce. And I think it took me that 500-day reset to kind of go back to like, okay, I can play again, but not like 18 hours a day, maybe just a bit less. And it kind of get a bit more balance, maybe, you know, have a job that I'm working towards, have a qualification that I'm working towards, maybe work on my health a bit more. And I think that, yeah, that reset really, really helped me refresh my love for the game as well.
That's cool. And I think so many people probably have had similar experiences. I think being younger as well, being younger where you're really trying to figure out life, it's definitely a much easier, it's just so much easier to get sort of addicted and wrapped up into the online space. And I think the older you get, when you start realizing, I mean, for me, it was once I fully accepted that I'm mortal, I was like, oh, okay, I should probably get some shit done. So, you know, like when you're young, you just think like you're going to live, you're going to be young forever, and you're going to live forever. And it's just all fun and games. And then I think they're just, with anybody's life, like they eventually hit a point where they understand like changes have to be made. So, but I am so fucking grateful for this game, for one, my own mental health. Like it is genuinely something that has helped me throughout like my life in a lot of ways. I've definitely had my super addicted phases with it, and I think ultimately, I mean, I'm definitely in a unique position too, where like the game is sort of my career now. But it would be interesting to see my life if Andrew Gower never made this game, like what it would have turned out to be. It probably would have just been some other video game I would have gotten addicted to, but I would have hated it because it wouldn't have been old school RuneScape. So
it's just so strange, isn't it? Like the impact, people who've played this game and love it, the impact it has is just incredible. And
it is.
I think that should be celebrated. It's not a negative thing at all. And yeah, one thing I'd like to say as well is when I was really sort of kind of not feeling good at all in university, back when I maxed, that was part of the reason I was able. I'm not saying everyone else is depressed when they max early, but I wasn't feeling great when I got sort of second page max. And you know what though, even though I wasn't feeling good at the time, it was an achievement. It was something that I had achieved, and I wouldn't have had that if I didn't have this game. I would have had nothing to achieve, if that makes sense. So I actually think that if someone isn't in a good place and they really just need a respite, what's wrong with just like, maybe you can get a sense of feeling or accomplishment from a game, and then when you're feeling better, okay, let's sort things out in real life now. You know what I mean? And I think that's okay. And
this game's great for that because of the grinding mentality it basically instills in you. Like you see your actual goals become like you actually complete your goals in this game, and like you get the satisfaction of actually having completed something you set out to do. And I think in real life, life is just so much more complex, and there's so much more that goes with most goals. And with a game as simple as like all you have to do is just do this thing to reach that goal, I think it can start helping create those, like, this is probably not scientifically accurate at all, but maybe creating like little synapses in your brain of like, oh, I can achieve things if I put in the work and I follow the path that, you know, that I know will lead me to that goal. And again, like real life is much more complicated than that, but it still follows the same rules.
Yeah, it's exactly the point I'm trying to make. And if you can't get it elsewhere, then, and a game can give it to you temporarily, that's great. Take it. You know what I mean? And like for a lot of content creators like yourself, it's a really positive thing. You can. I'm super jealous. I would love to be in a position where I can play this and be a content creator. But the thing is that I I just haven't put the time into that. And if I ever want it, I'll try. But for example, if you know the series Limpwort, his
Mm-hmm.
one shot Iron
Oh
Man,
yeah.
that if you showed that to like a Nobel peace winner or something, it's like that's like for me, Limpwort's one chunk Iron Man is the most insane account on the game because the dedication and commitment that absolute psychopath has to this game is just unparalleled. And if he can do that one chunk, and where is he now? He's like I can't even remember. He's just completed Revs, hasn't he? If that dude can do a one chunk that good, then we can have world peace. You know what I mean? Like that's a crazy accomplishment.
Yeah. I just remember I mean we've had some I mean just, I need to give the shout out to Verf and to Agile Tom as well.
Oh, of
Like
course.
them
Yeah.
stick I mean Verf was in fucking the catacombs for like 500,000 hill giants and however many fucking Scotizo we had to kill and all this shit. And then Cox chunk or Agile Tom was his first chunk was complete Chambers of Zarek, including all the CM capes. Like, what the fuck, dude?
I did not know about him. Is that Agile Tom?
Yeah, and he completed it. He fully completed all the capes, and he green logged all of Chambers as his first goal.
That's insane, man.
It's
I love that,
fucking
though.
ridiculous. And like you got to keep in mind, like this is not a guy that is pimped out with full max stuff grinding it. It's like no, he started with nothing. Yeah,
And
insane.
that is cool. That is super cool. And I did watch Verf's chunk Iron Man recently, and the reason I mentioned Limpwet is just because I think he was like the original one I watched.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But Verf's account, I mean the Scotizo grant, it was almost painful because it was like episode 30. No criticism to Verf, but he wasn't out of his chunk by like halfway through his series, and I felt so sorry for the guy. I was just oh my god, how does he do it?
Limpwort is always like the OG for those extreme things because like it's just like the first episode he genocided like 500,000 men and women in Lumbridge. Like that is the first episode. Like what the fuck, dude? Like what even is that? Like the fact that you didn't even make the series yet. Like you did all this shit and then made episode 1. Wild.
And that's what I mean. This game just it hits different. It inspires so much passion from players because that's just passion. It's pure passion that,
Yeah.
and I just love it. I think it's brilliant.
Murdering civilians in Lumbridge. It's just passion.
It's just pure passion.
Yeah, no, that was just an amazing like for a pilot of a series. His is like goes down in like the history books. It's just so fucking crazy.
But yeah, overall, I would just say. Like I'd mirror what you said. I'm so grateful that we've got this game. It's not only is it still alive, it's doing better than ever, and that's a true testament to it. So long may it continue.
Totally. Now, I guess the last sort of topic I want to touch on before we wrap things up is sailing and sort of the future state of OSRS. So you as a long-term player that started day one did have pretty strong sentiments toward the game progressing with Grand Exchange and alting and everything else. How do you feel, and has your opinions changed over the last few years of sailing being brought into the game?
So, as you can tell with some of the other discussions I had, like some of my ideas aren't that well fleshed out, but I'll give you my like initial thoughts on sailing. I always thought that what was unfortunate with sailing was that it kind of started as a meme. So you know how like with the RuneScape is bad, RuneScape 3 is bad meme. It's a bit like that. I think I remember it was April Fool's Day, and on the original RuneScape they added sailing as like a skill icon, and it was a joke. And I kind of think that it's really unfortunate because now 15 years later, however long later, it's being added as a serious skill. So people are still thinking like, why is a meme joke skill being added to the game? So I think that's the number one issue. on people's perceptions is already very negative because of that. My take is, I think that it's definitely a new skill is needed. Not needed, but it's good. I think it could survive without a new skill, but it's good to have a new skill because for me personally, I haven't leveled a skill on my main since 2014. So I would love to just try something a bit different that isn't just pet hunting or whatever else, bossing. So I'm a big proponent of it, and I think it's only good if the rewards are good. Because for me, I think that sailing is as good as the imagination, as the developer's imagination is. So what I mean by that is, if you were literally just sailing around, dropping your anchor, and that was how you got XP, and you didn't get anything apart from that, it would suck. But I've looked at the blogs. I think the blogs are pretty good. Like I like the idea of it helping with a bit of PVM. The Aquanite Hopper, I think that's really nice. Nice idea. I love the idea of like sort of having new islands, new Slayer creatures. Very cool. So I think it's a good skill, much better in my opinion than something like artisanal warding would have been, because those are quite niche skills. I think those were way too niche, and they were really pushing those, and I think that would have been a bad move. Sailing opens up the map. It has a lot of potential. So I don't think it's a bad update at all. And I can also tell it's really obvious, I think, that the dev team are like, they really want the community to like it. And I really hope that they do, because I can tell they've put a lot of work in behind the scenes. And you can actually kind of see, if anyone's watched Guzu's video on his Jagex tour recently in Cambridge, the discussion they're having, the mods in the office, you can tell they're feeling quite tense. They really like, oh, we know the community, it's a bit of a meme sailing, and we just kind of want them to see that we really think it's going to work. And so my take is that it's got a huge amount of potential. It looks good so far, and I think we should, personally, I think we should trust the team with the skill, because look at where they've taken Old School so far. I'm confident, fairly confident it will be a success because of all those reasons.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see. I mean, they're planning on dropping it this year, so I'm guessing probably late November or something, and then
maybe December.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it all lands, and they're planning on continuously keeping it updated and making sure the kinks are ironed out, and continually giving more and more like actual big updates to sailing. So it's not just going to be dropped and then we're just stuck with it.
Yeah.
It's gonna honestly be a really interesting time period, I think, for like the following 6 months, to just see how the game and the community sort of react to it, and if it really ends up kind of, because I think we're not really going to be able to see the real benefits from it clearly. I think you can see the benefits from it, but I think the average player will not be able to see it very clearly until a couple of years after the release of sailing, where everything is kind of smoothed out and we can see clearly, like, okay, what metas were changed, how has it affected how the game is played now, and like, was it ultimately a good update? And I think, I personally believe it will be a good update, but it will be just a matter of time to see it very clearly, to see what the impacts of it were. So
yeah, I mean, it's a leap of faith, isn't it? And it's kind of inherently risky adding a new skill to a game that's based on being old and nostalgic. But I think that it kind of needed to happen eventually, a new skill. We're at like 13, 14 years now, and I think it's time. But it's a risk. I just hope that people give them some time. Like, if it's not great on release, they're very good. I think the team are very good at taking on feedback and addressing that. So I think whatever we end up with will be decent, will be good enough.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, cool. Slay more. I have greatly appreciated your time today. This was really fun. This is our first time ever meeting, and I felt like it was talking with a friend. So this was just phenomenal.
And I'd just like to say thank you so much, because I really wasn't expecting to even get an answer back. And thank you for being so open to just having anyone from the community on, not just content creators. I think that's really cool of you. And yeah, the last thing I'd like to say is one last thing in before we finish.
Yeah.
Is I'd love it if someone hosted a Gillenor Games for non-content creators, and I believe you can do it. So
me? Oh no, you're gonna put that on me?
come on,
oh,
man.
God.
Come on, man. You got this.
See, that would be. I feel like if it's gonna even come close to anything like Gillenor Games with the production value and everything, there's so many things to consider. I know maybe you're slightly memeing, but there's so many things to consider. Like content creators are used to being on the mic, used to creating entertainment, used to like, first of all, just understanding the game, and I feel like their schedules can align better because most of them just work from home, and so they can just have all that free time to work with people, and they have like a reputation to sort of withhold or like to sort of maintain, I guess. And I feel like with non-content creators, it can just be like there can be some weird shit that's said if you're gonna just let them rip on the mic. And I it would be interesting. I think there's a lot of things to kind of take into consideration, but then ultimately you'd need somebody with the passion and the skill set like Soup to create something that actually has a decent production value. And I'm just like, oh no, that is.
Don't worry about it. I was half joking.
Yeah. That would be cool though. I think the concept is there though, because there are, especially if you were to get like really good players that truly understand the game, that just aren't content creators, but they are still very passionate and talented at the game. That would be fun instead of like the average Timmy or Jimmy just getting on there having no fucking clue what they're doing.
Exactly. But anyway, I don't want to keep you for too long. Thanks so much for the interview. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, I really do appreciate it. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we run this back at some future point, maybe after Sailing drops. So thank you so much for coming on. And for those still listening, there's a Patreon, Spotify, and YouTube membership link where you can support for $2 and gain access to currently 10 exclusive full-length episodes. And they are bangers, in my opinion. So go check them out. And just for general support, if you guys are loving these casts, it goes a long way. So thank you so much, everybody, and we will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.